Bonanza wasn't just a TV show, it was a cultural phenomenon, built on unforgettable characters and timeless stories. But behind the scenes, each cast member faced their own final chapter. From sudden losses to quiet goodbyes, this is how the stars of the Ponderosa rode into history, and where their journeys ended. Lorne Greene, the heart of the Cartwrights. Long before he became America's most beloved TV patriarch, Lorne Greene was known in Canada as the Voice of Doom, a radio announcer with a deep, commanding tone who reported grim World War II news to a shaken public. But in 1959, he stepped into a different kind of leadership role, trading headlines for horseback, as Ben Cartwright, the wise and steady father of Bonanza's Cartwright clan. As Ben, Greene anchored the series with a mix of warmth and gravitas. He was the emotional compass of the Ponderosa, a man who had raised 3 very different sons, each by a different wife, and somehow kept the family together through frontier violence, personal tragedy, and the wild unpredictability of the West. His character didn't rely on fists or guns. His power came from his integrity, his wisdom, and that unmistakable voice. Greene wasn't just acting. Off-screen, he carried himself with the same quiet authority. Cast and crew often described him as professional, generous, and a calming presence on set. Michael Landon once called him a father figure in more ways than one. Over Bonanza's incredible 14-season run, Greene appeared in nearly every episode, nearly 400 in total, and never wavered in his role as the moral center of the show. After Bonanza ended in 1973, Greene remained in the public eye. He hosted documentaries, released spoken-word albums, and returned to primetime in 1978 with another iconic role, as Commander Adama in Battlestar Galactica. Even in space, he played the father figure. That image of Greene as the strong guiding hand never left him. But on September 11, 1987, fans were stunned to learn that Greene had passed away at the age of 72, following complications from pneumonia. He had undergone surgery for an ulcer, and the recovery proved too much for his heart. The man who had once seemed larger than life, steady as a rock in every storm, was gone. His death marked a turning point for Bonanza fans. While several of the original cast members were still alive, Greene had always felt like the show's backbone. Without him, the memory of the Ponderosa grew a little dimmer. To this day, Greene's portrayal of Ben Cartwright remains one of the most enduring father figures in television history. His scenes with Little Joe, Hoss, and Adam still feel real, filled with genuine affection, stern discipline, and unspoken love. Reruns continue to air around the world, introducing new generations to the Cartwrights. And each time Ben rides across the screen, that deep, unforgettable voice echoes again. Because Lorne Greene didn't just play a great father, he was one. To his cast, to his audience, and to a whole generation who needed someone to look up to. Michael Landon, the youngest son's tragic end. If Lorne Greene was the soul of Bonanza, then Michael Landon was its spirit, fiery, funny, and full of youthful charm. As Little Joe Cartwright, Landon played the youngest Cartwright brother, a quick-tempered but big-hearted cowboy who gave the show its spark. Girls loved him, boys wanted to be him, and parents, watching from their living rooms, quietly rooted for the kid with the wild streak and the tender eyes. Landon joined Bonanza at just 22 years old. Over 14 seasons, he became a household name, not just for his good looks, but for the emotional depth he brought to the role. Little Joe wasn't just comic relief. He had arcs of heartbreak, loyalty, loss, and even vengeance. Landon played each note perfectly, giving fans a character that felt real. But Landon's impact went far beyond acting. He was also a writer and director on the show, eventually penning some of its most poignant episodes, including the unforgettable Forever, written after the death of Dan Blocker. His behind-the-scenes leadership helped steer Bonanza through its final years, even as the cast and fans grieved. After Bonanza, Landon didn't slow down. He created and starred in Little House on the Prairie, once again capturing hearts as Charles Ingalls, a humble, hard-working family man. Then came Highway to Heaven, where he played a literal angel sent to Earth to help people in pain. Each role showed the same traits Landon had as Little Joe: compassion, resilience, and a deep sense of purpose. But behind the success, there were shadows. In April 1991, Landon was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, an aggressive illness that spreads fast and kills faster. Ever the fighter, he went public with his battle, appearing on The Tonight Show to speak openly about the disease and to encourage others to cherish life. Just 3 months later, on July 1, 1991, Landon passed away at the age of 54. The news hit fans like a punch to the gut. He wasn't just a former TV star. He had been a constant in American homes for over 3 decades. Tributes poured in from around the world. His former co-stars called him brilliant, generous, and fiercely loyal. Viewers who had grown up watching him said they felt like they had lost a friend. And for many, it felt especially cruel. Landon had brought so many people hope. And now, his story had ended too soon. Even today, Michael Landon's name carries a kind of mythic weight. Whether riding across the Ponderosa, building a house on the prairie, or walking barefoot as an angel in a denim jacket, he played characters that healed, that protected, that gave people someone to believe in. And that's what makes his death so tragic. Because when Michael Landon died, we didn't just lose an actor, we lost a vision of goodness that television rarely captures anymore. Dan Blocker, the gentle giant, gone too soon. To millions of fans, Dan Blocker wasn't just an actor. He was a force of nature, wrapped in a cowboy hat and a tender smile. As Hoss Cartwright, the middle brother on Bonanza, Blocker brought heart, humor, and a deep humanity to a genre that often relied on grit and gunfire. He made the Western warm. Blocker's real life was just as compelling as the role he played. Born in Texas in 1928, he was famously large from the start, 14 pounds at birth, the biggest baby ever born in Bowie County. That size followed him all his life, but so did something else: a gentle spirit. Friends and co-stars often described him as the kindest man in the room, funny, thoughtful, and loyal. Before acting, Blocker served with distinction in the Korean War, earning a Purple Heart. After returning home, he pursued a master's degree in theater and taught school before turning to television. Ironically, it was his massive build that first got him noticed, but it was his emotional intelligence, his gift for timing, and his natural warmth that made him unforgettable. When Bonanza premiered in 1959, Blocker turned what could have been a one-dimensional big guy role into something beloved. Hoss wasn't just muscle. He was soulful, sweet, and heartbreakingly human. Whether he was rescuing a lost child, breaking up a bar fight, or simply sitting at the family table, he felt real. Off-screen, Blocker was equally respected. He was close with his castmates, especially Michael Landon, who often said Dan was the best of us. On set, he was known for bringing donuts to the crew, cheering up extras, and going out of his way to make others feel at home. He was a moral compass, both on and off camera. Then, in May 1972, the unthinkable happened. Blocker entered the hospital for routine gallbladder surgery. But after the procedure, he suffered a pulmonary embolism, a blood clot in the lungs. Within hours, he was gone. He was just 43 years old. The cast was devastated. NBC executives were blindsided. Fans across the country were in disbelief. There was no plan for this, no script to explain the loss. And so, when Bonanza returned that fall, Dan Blocker's death was met with silence. His character was not recast, and his absence was never directly addressed. Instead, the episode Forever became a subtle, emotional tribute. Written by Landon, it followed little Joe grieving a mysterious loss. And every scene, every pause, every empty chair felt like it was grieving Dan, not just Hoss. His death marked the beginning of the end for Bonanza. The show struggled to recover. The chemistry was never the same. And 1 year later, after 14 seasons, the legendary series came to a quiet close. But Blocker's legacy never faded. Fans still write letters to his family. His episodes remain fan favorites, and his son, Dirk Blocker, carries on the legacy, not through westerns, but through small, sincere performances that echo his father's spirit. Dan Blocker may have left the screen early, but the character he created, and the man behind it, left a mark on American culture that no number of seasons could ever replace. Pernell Roberts, the rebel of the Cartwright clan. Of all the Cartwright sons, Pernell Roberts was the one who left the ranch too soon, and not just in life, but from the show itself. As Adam Cartwright, the eldest and most serious brother on Bonanza, Roberts brought an intellectual edge to the series. He was the thinker, the architect, the man with vision. But behind the scenes, he was also the one who challenged the status quo, and eventually walked away from it. Roberts joined Bonanza in 1959 with a strong background in Shakespearean theater and serious stage work. He had a commanding presence, a deep voice, and the kind of brooding charisma that made Adam Cartwright stand apart from his younger, more emotionally driven brothers. His performances were subtle but powerful. He could say more with a glare than most could with a monologue. But Roberts quickly grew disillusioned with the show. He felt that Bonanza didn't allow the characters, especially his own, to evolve or tackle deeper issues. He criticized the scripts as formulaic and resented the fact that, in his words, the boys always had to come home and explain themselves to Pa. He also objected to the limited roles for minorities, especially in a show set in the American West. By 1965, after 6 seasons, Roberts had enough. He left Bonanza, one of the most successful shows on television at the time, making him one of the first actors in history to walk away from a hit series at its peak. Fans were shocked. The producers were frustrated. But Roberts stood by his decision. "I just wanted to do something more challenging," he later said. In the years that followed, Roberts returned to the stage and took on a mix of guest roles in TV dramas. But it wasn't until 1979 that he made a true comeback. This time as Dr. Trapper John McIntyre in Trapper John, M.D. The role, based on a character from MASH, gave Roberts the chance to play a mature, compassionate lead. The show ran for 7 seasons and introduced him to a new generation of viewers. Despite his success, Roberts remained private, even reclusive. He rarely gave interviews and avoided Bonanza reunions, believing the show didn't reflect the complexity he wanted in his work. Yet fans never forgot Adam Cartwright. His early episodes remained popular, and many viewers admired his decision to leave on his own terms. Sadly, in 2010, Roberts passed away at the age of 81 after a battle with pancreatic cancer, the same illness that claimed Michael Landon. Though he had distanced himself from the show that made him famous, his death was mourned deeply by fans and former co-stars. In hindsight, Pernell Roberts' story is one of artistic courage. He was a man who refused to settle for safety or routine, even if it meant giving up fame. He stood for creative integrity, for substance over stardom. And though he rode off into the sunset, long before the rest of the Cartwright clan, his shadow still lingers, smart, stubborn, and unforgettable. Victor Sen-Yung, the loyal cook with a tragic end. While the Cartwrights ran the Ponderosa with muscle and moral strength, Victor Sen-Yung brought something just as essential: heart, humor, and warmth. As Hop Sing, the beloved Chinese housekeeper and cook on Bonanza, Sen-Yung became one of the few Asian American faces on primetime television in the 1960s. And while his role was often comic relief, his presence left a lasting mark. Hop Sing wasn't just there to serve food. He brought balance to the Cartwright home. With his high-energy outbursts, his fierce pride in his kitchen, and his gentle affection for the boys, he was more than a background character. He was family. Over the course of Bonanza's 14 seasons, Victor appeared in over 100 episodes, always delivering a burst of life whenever he walked on screen. Born in San Francisco in 1915, Sen-Yung studied animal husbandry before stumbling into acting during the 1930s. His breakout came in the Charlie Chan films, where he played Jimmy Chan, the detective's quick-witted son. It was a rare achievement for an Asian actor at the time, but despite his talent, Victor was often confined to stereotypical roles: servants, houseboys, background characters, limited by Hollywood's deeply ingrained racism. Still, he persisted. Off-screen, he was known for his dedication, work ethic, and culinary skills. He was an accomplished chef who even wrote a cookbook, the Great Wok Cookbook, showcasing Chinese-American recipes. He brought that same energy to Bonanza, and his chemistry with the cast, especially Lorne Greene, was authentic and warm. But Victor Sen-Yung's story ended in quiet tragedy. In October 1980, friends became concerned when they hadn't heard from him in days. Police later found him in his home in North Hollywood, slumped over in the kitchen. The cause of death? Carbon monoxide poisoning. A malfunctioning gas heater had leaked silently into the room. He was 65 years old. News of his death shocked fans and saddened his former co-stars. It was a lonely, unexpected end for a man who had brought so much light to the screen. Victor never received the awards or accolades others did, but he holds a unique place in television history. He gave life to one of the first recurring Asian characters on a mainstream TV show, and did it with heart, dignity, and humor. He made Hop Sing lovable, not laughable. Today, Bonanza fans still remember the way Hop Sing would march into a room, apron flying, voice raised in comic frustration, only to offer a warm smile moments later. And more importantly, they remember Victor Sen-Yung, a pioneer who carved a path where there was none. Ray Teal, the sheriff who kept order. He didn't wear a Cartwright name, but Ray Teal's presence on Bonanza was just as essential as any family member. As Sheriff Roy Coffey, Teal played the soft-spoken, iron-willed lawman who kept Virginia City safe, and brought a sense of justice that felt earned, not forced. He appeared in over 90 episodes, and while his role was recurring, it never felt small. Whenever Roy Coffey entered a scene, he grounded it. No flash, no ego, just a man doing his duty with honor. That quiet strength made him one of the most trusted and understated characters in the entire series. Ray Teal was no stranger to the Western genre. Born in 1902, he began his career as a musician before transitioning to film in the 1930s. By the time he joined Bonanza, he had already appeared in dozens of westerns, often playing sheriffs, ranchers, and frontier fathers. His weathered face and calm demeanor made him the kind of man you believed in, just by looking at him. Off-camera, Teal was said to be much like his character, humble, patient, and deeply respected. He didn't chase fame, but he showed up, episode after episode, delivering performances that quietly elevated every scene. While other characters rode horses or drew guns, Sheriff Coffee often resolved conflict with reason and presence. He rarely raised his voice. He didn't need to. And in doing so, he offered viewers something rare in a Western: measured masculinity. A man who could keep the peace without firing a shot. Ray Teal's last appearance on Bonanza came near the end of the series, and by then, fans had come to rely on him as part of the emotional fabric of the show. He was the man who knew the Cartwrights, believed in their values, and enforced the law with fairness. On April 2, 1976, Ray Teal passed away at the age of 74. The cause of death was never publicly disclosed, but his legacy lived on, in every sheriff's badge that came after him, in every quiet hero who didn't need to shout to be strong. Though he wasn't a main star, Teal's steady presence helped shape Bonanza into something more than just a Western. He gave it a sense of community, of order, of reality. Because in a town filled with gunmen and gold diggers, Sheriff Roy Coffee was the rare man who made justice feel human. David Canary, the foreman who became family. By the late 1960s, Bonanza had already lost Pernell Roberts, and the sudden death of Dan Blocker was still years away. But in between those milestones came a new energy, a new character who didn't share the Cartwright name, but earned his place on the Ponderosa with grit, charm, and loyalty. That man was David Canary, and the role was Candy Canaday. Introduced in 1967, Candy was a foreman, ranch hand, and all-around right-hand man to the Cartwrights. He wasn't just hired help, he became family. Canary brought something unique to the show. He wasn't trying to fill a missing brother's shoes. Instead, he gave Bonanza a dose of rugged youth, unshakable integrity, and a bit of modern edge. With his piercing blue eyes and calm swagger, he stood shoulder to shoulder with the Cartwrights and earned the audience's respect. David Canary had the range and presence that made Candy more than just a supporting role. Though not part of the original cast, his performances were so strong that fans accepted him as a true Ponderosa man. Behind the scenes, Canary was known for his work ethic and professionalism, quickly becoming a reliable presence during a period when the show was struggling to find its footing post-Roberts. Canary left the show briefly due to contract disputes, but his departure was met with viewer backlash. The producers brought him back in the final season, recognizing that Candy had become essential to what Bonanza had evolved into, a show less about one family name and more about the values that name stood for. But while Bonanza was just one chapter in his career, David Canary would go on to achieve even greater fame elsewhere. In the world of daytime television, Canary became a legend. His work on All My Children, where he played dual roles, the villainous Adam Chandler and his gentle twin brother Stuart, earned him 5 Daytime Emmy Awards. The complexity and skill required to play both roles, often in the same scene, showed just how talented he truly was. Despite his soap opera fame, Canary never distanced himself from his Western roots. He often spoke fondly of his time on Bonanza, calling it a career-defining experience and a privilege to work alongside the original cast. "It was more than just a job," he once said. "It was a family." David Canary passed away on November 16, 2015, at the age of 77, from natural causes. His death didn't make as many headlines as those of the original Cartwrights, but among fans, it was deeply felt. He had come into the series quietly, but left it with an undeniable legacy. Candy Canaday may have arrived late in the Bonanza saga, but David Canary helped prove something important: that it was never about bloodlines. It was about loyalty, trust, and the kind of character that couldn't be faked. And for that, he earned his place on the Ponderosa forever. Bing Russell, a deputy and a baseball dad. You might not recall every line, but you remember his face. Firm jaw, steady eyes, quiet confidence. Bing Russell played Deputy Clem Foster on Bonanza, appearing in over 50 episodes. Though not a lead, he gave Virginia City authenticity and heart. Born May 5, 1926, in Vermont, Bing balanced two passions: Hollywood and baseball. In the 1930s, he was a bat boy for the New York Yankees and formed a lifelong bond with Lou Gehrig. That sense of fairness and hustle stayed with him. On screen, he was a dependable character actor, often seen in westerns and crime dramas. But his most surprising legacy came off the field. Founding the Portland Mavericks, an independent baseball team that celebrated underdogs and rejected convention. Among the players he mentored, his son, Kurt Russell, who would later call him a rebel with heart. In 2014, Bing's baseball journey was immortalized in the documentary The Battered Bastards of Baseball. Bing Russell died on April 8, 2003, at 76, from cancer. He wasn't a household name, but he left behind a legacy built on integrity, passion, and grit. On screen and off, he played by his own rules and made every moment count. Roy Engel, the island's quiet doctor. He didn't wear a badge or carry a gun, but when someone on the Ponderosa was hurt, they called Doc Martin, quietly and reliably played by Roy Engel. Appearing in 18 episodes between 1961 and 1969, Engel's character brought stability and compassion to a world of chaos and shootouts. Born in 1901, Engel had a long career in radio, film, and television. He appeared in over 150 productions, including Rawhide, Gunsmoke, and The Twilight Zone. On Bonanza, his presence signaled moments of emotional depth, when medicine, not might, was needed. He never overplayed a scene. He simply was calm, steady, and believable. Though not a lead, Engel became a subtle but vital part of the Bonanza world. Engel died on September 29, 1980, at age 70, from a non-communicable illness. There were no headlines, no tribute specials, but for fans, his performances still resonate. Because in a show built on action, Roy Engel reminded us that the West had healers too. And through Doc Martin, he made the frontier feel not just wild, but human. Bruno Vasota and Harry Holcomb, forgotten but not gone. They never had top billing, but Bruno Vasota and Harry Holcomb were unforgettable in the background of Bonanza. They gave Virginia City its realism, its texture. Vasota, with his expressive face, often played bartenders and shopkeepers. He appeared in dozens of episodes during the 1960s and had over 50 film credits. Also a director, he worked steadily until his sudden death in 1976 at just 54. Harry Holcomb, known for portraying a later version of Doc Martin, brought warmth and gentle humor. With a career spanning Perry Mason, the Waltons, and more, he often played doctors, judges, and other dignified roles. He passed away in 1987 at age 80. Neither man was a lead, but both were essential. Their roles made the world of Bonanza feel full and alive. They were the ones behind the bar, in the crowd, or offering advice just when it mattered. Their deaths may have gone quietly, but their work lives on, in every rerun, in every dusty street of Virginia City. Because in the story of Bonanza, even the smallest parts helped build a legend. Though the Cartwrights and their companions are long gone, their legacy lives on in every dusty trail, every heartfelt moment replayed in reruns. These actors gave us more than performances. They gave us pieces of themselves. And through Bonanza, they've secured a place in television history that death can't erase.